Hey everyone, I've seen it quite a bit. It's all over the place. This idea that insulin stimulation from your diet is the reason you aren't able to lose body fat. Right here, right now, I'm going to show you how that is true and also why that isn't the reason you're unable to lose body fat. So stick around.
Learn Your Body, a science-based education.
If you're unfamiliar with who I am, I'm a doctorate student in molecular medicine. I hold my master's degree in exercise physiology. I studied some nutrition science at university, and I've worked for a number of years in a metabolism laboratory as an actual scientist. Now that my credentials are out of the way, let's discuss this widespread misunderstanding of insulin and its role in preventing fat loss. You've likely heard from anti-insulin pseudo-pundits that insulin stops fat breakdown from fat cells. That's true. Insulin binds the insulin receptor on the body cells and reduces the activity of several key enzymes within the fat cells, chiefly hormone-sensitive lipase. This enzyme, lipase, is partly responsible for cutting up fat molecules known as triglycerides into their simpler form, fatty acids, which is then released into the bloodstream to be used by more metabolically active cells. Since insulin inhibits this from occurring, it makes sense to believe that insulin stops fat loss. Unfortunately, insulin also allows the entrance of glucose or blood sugar into the cells. If they're muscle cells or other metabolically active cells, it isn't much of an issue because the glucose will be metabolized. But if the cells are occupied using glucose, they'll use less fat molecules, fatty acids, for energy, thereby less will be metabolized, reducing fat loss. However, since insulin also binds the fat cells, it introduces glucose to the fat cells, which use glucose to generate more fat, a process called lipogenesis. So, clearly, through a number of mechanisms, insulin inhibits fat breakdown and easily can be pointed out as a culprit for why you can't lose body fat. But that perspective is insular and incomplete. The reason the insulin-centric perspective is incomplete is because if we stretch our outlook to our entire metabolism, insulin can still play its roles and we can still experience fat loss. How? Well, allow me. Your body, as it is presently constructed, requires X amount of energy a day to keep you alive and functioning. That energy is liberated through the metabolism of a few nutrients, but we'll focus on two major ones, carbohydrate and fat molecules. If you consume less than the necessary amount of energy to maintain your body's function, your body liberates fat molecules from the fat cells. If this occurs over weeks, that's noticeable fat loss. Now, that implies that insulin must be lower during these times, and it is. Anytime you consume less food than your body requires, insulin levels are lower, relative to the amount of insulin that would be present if you consumed enough to meet your body's energy needs. Or, if you overconsumed, your insulin levels would be even higher. So, there is a significant correlation between insulin levels and fat gain, as well as lack of fat loss. Two sides of the same coin. However, in relative terms, the amount of insulin present is lower when you consume less than your body needs. So, throughout the day that you underconsume energy-dense nutrients like carbohydrates and fats, there will be times where the blood insulin levels will be insufficient to cause a retention of fat through the various mechanisms we described earlier, thereby releasing the brake on fat loss, because one immutable law is that your body must have its daily energy need met, one way or another, from the nutrients you consume or from your fat cells releasing fat. And if you fail to consume enough nutrients, the body will release less insulin, as well as release antithetic hormones, thereby liberating fat molecules from the fat cells. So, both can exist, insulin and fat loss, but the amount of each is highly related to the other, in an inverse way, with more insulin prompting less likely fat loss. Okay?
Keto. The ketogenic diet.
What's that I hear? The ketogenic zealots have arrived? Well. If insulin is too high, it reduces fat loss. And as we know that carbohydrates stimulate insulin the most out of any nutrient, then is the ketogenic diet, which cuts out carbohydrates, the superior diet for fat loss? That does follow the logic and science outlined throughout this piece, and yet there's a problem. Let's discuss it next. Select the attached content. See you there. Cheers.